Hey there, and welcome to the Dynamics Hot Dish Podcast, serving up stories and knowledge on Dynamics 365 and the Power Platform. This is what's hot in Dynamics. You're now joining your hosts, Ashley Steiner and Merlin Schweik.
I was watching this, I watch a lot of true crime stuff, and so it was like this lady, and I really should learn her name, but it was it was just on. I turned the TV on and it was just the show, and apparently she just very bluntly asks questions to people in a very passive aggressive way, knowing how dumb, she asks them in a way to get them to realize how dumb they are based on the answer they're going to give. So she was talking about Nancy Grace, who, I don't know if you've heard of Nancy Grace, I guess, who spews her opinions as if they're factual on the news, and she only covers court cases. So she does Casey Anthony, she did the guy out in California that is in jail for murdering his wife, which, whatever. So she just always comments. So the guy who produces her show, she was like, oh, what would you say to somebody who's an aspiring TV reporter, but, loves to share their opinion, but the show makes it look like it's factual. It was just really funny because that's clearly what he does for the Nancy Grace show. Anyways, so she's just I love it. She's awesome. But they, you were talking about the BS in a courtroom. So apparently they got their defense from doing a trial jury that CBS paid for. So CBS, the TV network, paid to do a trial jury before the trial, that's a bad word to say, a pre-trial jury. They did a test jury, basically. Okay. Laid out all the facts, and then we're would you find this person guilty or not guilty? And they all were oh, I bet the kid died of an accident, drowned in the pool. And that was the defense. So CBS, the TV channel, paid for a test jury, and then what the test jury said is what they used as the defense. So, it just shows that may or may not have happened, but they got their defense from, these people who were just getting paid to be in a test jury. And that's what they used as the defense. It wasn't even so it wasn't even well, this is actually what happened. It was, no, we did a test jury. They aired it on CBS a month before the trial. And then that was their defense, was from a focus group. And that to me, opened my eyes of we need defense attorneys, right? I totally believe that everybody deserves a defense. I'm not one of these people that are they're terrible people. No, I think being a defense attorney is a very admirable job because you're dealing with some of the worst people in the world, but you're also trying to take an innocent person and prove their, anyways, I think it's an admirable career. I could never do it. But that just showed how much BS actually does go on in a courtroom.
Of course. I mean, at the end of the day, both sides
I found it was really fascinating.
Both sides are being paid to win, so you're going to do whatever you can to win.
Yeah, but it was so blatantly, who knows what happened? I mean, she was found not guilty, whatever. Case is 10 years old, but anyways, I found that very fascinating that they got their defense from the focus group, and people were oh yeah, that's believable, and that's why she got off, not because that's actually what happened. We don't know.
Interesting. Well, anything else to add to it? It's just fascinating.
I mean, we were talking about, I guess off camera, we were talking about judges, right? Or off recording. So, the worst part would be dealing, you said, with the BS in the courtroom.
And that is why I would never be a judge. I mean, one of many reasons.
Well, I would never want to be on a jury. I wouldn't want to be on a jury because I would
See, that's where I have always kind of wanted to have jury duty and be on a jury, just to
for
understand
a murder
more about,
or
whatever,
anything.
Just to understand more about how the process works.
She get arrested.
Somehow,
we'll find out real quick how the process works.
I feel like being on a jury maybe has a lower impact on the rest of my life, and I can still learn about the process with a lowered impact.
Than going to jail.
It's sort of It's like I could watch a documentary on like organ transplants. I don't actually have to try to cut out my own kidney. Like, yeah, I would learn a lot if I tried to cut out my own kidney, but I think I'd just, watch a YouTube video or read a book, maybe.
Such a weird analogy to compare. Yeah. It's a good point, though. I mean, I also would never cut out my own kidney. Unless, like, what if your kid needed your kidney? But I guess that's a different reason than just learning about it.
I would find a medical professional to assist in that process. What am I going to do? Like, cut out my own kidney and then, like, just stitch it into my kid? Like, I'm going to be like, oh, I hooked it up. And then a doctor looks at an x-ray and is like, well, you hooked up to the spleen. So congratulations, it's useless.
I have no idea how we got here. I don't know how. I'm trying really hard to find a connection between like BS and manipulation in the courtroom and artificial intelligence to kind of like connect to our topic. I don't know. I'm struggling a little bit. Like, you can use AI to, it's going to take over the world someday, right?
I mean, okay. So arguably, you could use AI to come up with a legal defense. Similar to your focus group example. Oh. Why not use AI? Traverse the total of case history in similar cases such as your own, and then, which cases won, which cases lost, and let the AI come up with a potential strategy for you.
I mean, I don't know if we're there yet. I don't know enough about...
I mean, honestly, I have to assume that an AI bot going through like court case history could do reasonably comparable work to, an overworked, underpaid, and sparsely educated, public defender. Like, just call your AI defense bot. Defense bot objects.
Did we just come up with like $1 million idea?
Maybe we did.
For the legal team. Yeah, maybe we should explore this a little bit more. Maybe we should hold off on this podcast and go build.
I mean, have you seen the AI like art stuff? Like Dolly and it's fascinating. No? It's fascinating.
I know so little about AI, to be honest with you. It sounds like you're going to educate me a little bit.
I tried to create some cover art for one of our podcast episodes with AI art, and it looked awful, so I didn't use it. But I'm going to keep trying.
But maybe we should use it for this episode, because
maybe we should.
Even if it's terrible, we can just say
it's terrible.
All right, so AI Builder, at least we're going to talk about today. Yeah, so I'll bring this up as I was at Summit in October, and people were talking about like new things or things to be excited about, and somebody brought up AI Builder, and I think I immediately texted Marilyn and was like, WTF is this? Like, maybe we should do a show on it so I can force myself to do some education, and because I can't be the only one who's like, all right, now there's more than just the business card reader, because I always was like, oh, AI is just, that's the only way I can integrate it into Dynamics, but there's clearly more out there. So thought it would be a good conversation for us.
I agree. It's a great conversation. I'm curious to know, what have you learned?
So I read through the Microsoft documentation, because that's the easiest way to learn, at least how to get things set up. And for me, it sounds like a lot of it has to do with reading images and pulling pieces of information in. At least that's the way. That's not artificial intelligence as a whole, right? But it's just the AI builder that is in Dynamics, is that you can upload pictures and it'll look for objects or text or like the business card reader. That's at least what I've gotten out of it so far. So that way, like if you're out on, let's say if you're a field service person and you're out on a job and you can take a picture and upload it, and then it can kind of tell you what pieces are there or missing or something. That's at least the way I understood it. I could be completely wrong.
I mean, no, you're not completely wrong. And I'll preface this by saying, I'm certainly not an expert in AI Builder either. And right here on my screen, I have the Microsoft documentation so that I remember all of the pieces that it includes.
I mean,
but
there's no way
certainly-
that I think anyone could know everything.
No, but certainly the vision stuff is a large component. Is also, I think, one of the coolest components, because you can, to your point, you can like upload a picture and have it figure something out. So there's a maybe about a year ago, I tried to use the document processing model, where you can essentially like give it a picture, a PDF, whatever, of like an invoice, a purchase order, or something, and it'll go through and like extract all the data out of it, and then you do something with that data, integrate it to somewhere, or kick off a process or whatever. And it does. I mean, it does pretty well, even with like to some degree hand scribbled invoices. Like, it's not going to probably get the language that well, but it'll do the numbers okay. And so like I've tried to use that, and it worked reasonably well. But that's just the vision stuff. Like, I actually saw, this was probably 2 or 3 years ago at this point, I saw somebody build like a demo power app, like a Canvas app, where they would take a picture of a metal object and it would tell them if it was rusty or not, which, from an actual like use case perspective, that's kind of useless, but it's also kind of cool to be like,
It
can
is.
actually tell if something is rusty.
Like,
That's
how
kinda
does it know it's rusty? Like, the fact that you can build that in is kind of interesting.
Right, it is. So the vision stuff, I think, is the most like fun, but there's also all the language processing, like the sentiment analysis. Like, you can, somewhere in there's something where you like, hook it up and make it listen to voicemails or phone calls, and it'll be like, this person was happy, this person was angry, like this person was really angry. Like,
Yeah, I
tag a
feel
sentiment to it.
I feel like they're using that in Viva Sales, because when you transcribe calls using Viva Sales, it'll like mark words red or green. So you can say like, oh, this word was said with a little bit of a tone, or kind of higher, like louder, like a yelling, but not quite. And so it'll take things, so you can go, oh, this is where they said the deadline's not going to work for them. Let me go exactly here to see the conversation, sum it up, that kind of thing. So they've got to be using something in there, the sentiment inside of Viva Sales.
Probably. And I mean, you can use it on text too. So like, read emails and tell me, is this email generally positive or generally negative? And, tie that into like your customer service stuff.
So I will say that this was something taken out of Dynamics, especially in the customer service world, was, what did they call it? Where you could do like sentiment of tweets and things like that. There was a name for it. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Was that the social listening?
We'll put it in the notes. I can't think of it. Yeah, social listening. Yes. So that's deprecated. So this actually probably you could set it up to replace that.
Yeah, you probably could.
Yeah. Okay.
So I guess all of that stuff, analyzing text, analyzing audio, analyzing images, like all of that falls into the Azure Cognitive Services bucket. But AI Builder is sort of a limited set of Azure Cognitive stuff. So there's like, you can get into, make it do whatever you want it to do with your own like custom AI models. I'm not going to do that. You're not going to do that. Probably most of the people listening aren't going to do that, because you have to be like an AI, like data scientist sort of person to figure out what the model actually needs to do.
Right.
The AI Builder stuff is made to be a little bit more plug and play for essentially anybody to use. And so like some of it is like the business card reader or the document processing thing, where they're like mostly pre-built and you just like turn it on. Like, oh, you want the business card reader? Just add it and it'll like do its thing. But then there's also the,
and you're talking
custom
about specifically like, are you talking about like in a Power App, or are you talking like Power Automate?
Or in Dynamics,
where it's plug and play.
Wherever. Yeah, it's like pretty plug and play. Those are kind of like the ready to go ones. And then they've got their custom AI models, which is still AI Builder, but it's not like I'm going and developing my own model. It's they give you a model and then you make the model kind of do what you want it to do. So like one of the examples actually is the image classification. So like there's no pre-built model to say, tell me the difference between a dog and a cat. But you could use the image classification AI to say, I would like to build an AI model that will look at a picture and tell me if it's a dog or if it's a cat. And so you like build it out and then you train it. So you give it like a bunch of pictures of dogs and a bunch of pictures of cats. And then it's like, cool, I got this. And then you start feeding it pictures and it'll be like, that's a dog. 78% certain that's a dog. 35% certain that's a cat, whatever. And it'll start, doing the classification.
So what is the training? I guess that's got to take time, right? Because you have to tell it whether it's right or wrong in order for it to become accurate, right? Because people say like, oh, AI, let me just set it up and it's going to give me all this data. I mean, like you have to train it to be accurate.
But most of that training is you give it a data set that already is correct. So
gotcha. Okay.
It's not like, I'll keep using my dog and cat example. It's not like you're going to give the model 100 pictures and then it's going to go through and be like, I think this is the dog. And you'll be like, no, that's a cat. It's going to be like, I think this is a cat. And you'll be like, yes, that's a cat. Like, you're not doing that. You're going to give it 50 images that are all dogs, like a whole bunch of different breeds of dogs. And you're going to say, okay, AI builder, all of these are dogs. And then you're going to give it 50 more images and be like, all of these are cats. And that's the training.
Got it.
Then it looks through all the cat ones and it's like, okay, I got a cat. Looks through all the dog ones. Okay, I think I got dog. And then you can like test it. Be like, all right, here's a new picture that you haven't seen before. What's in it? It'll be like, I don't know, that's a panda bear.
Nice. Okay. Interesting. So I guess my biggest question is like, what is the best use case for this then? So when I was going through it, I was like, oh, this is all cool. But like, I've never worked in a situation other than the business card reader. But gosh, that's been around for like, 5-6 years. So like, of course, there's good use cases for that. I can't think of a scenario where like this would be an enhancement other than just, hey, I'm techie and I think this is cool.
Right. As other than like a nerd use case, like, okay, I built something to identify a dog versus a cat. Like, what good is that? I think
right. Like, where's the real world example?
So, I'm trying to think this through on the fly, but let's imagine that you ran a pet hospital, and it's the middle of the night, and you have 2 different vets that could be on call. One specializes in dogs, and one specializes in cats. This might be a stretch. I don't actually believe that veterinarians specialize that way, but let's imagine that this is the case.
Fair enough.
Your customer reaches out to your emergency, contact line and is like, my animal, my Pookums is sick. And you say, cool, send me a picture of Pookums. They send in a picture. You're like, okay, based on this picture, Pookums is a cat. Let's alert our cat vet instead of our dog vet. The dog vet gets to sleep.
Okay.
Very, very rudimentary sort of use case.
Yeah.
But I think, like, the sentiment ones, I feel like are a little bit easier to come up with use cases for because every customer service organization, or even sales organizations, probably want to know, like, how are their customers or potential customers feeling when they're on the phone, getting emails, whatever. And so if you can automate some of that, cool. I think the image
like maybe route it to
stuff,
like a higher level person if it's angry.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. Like flag this for follow-up, or maybe send them a coupon code so that, they feel happy.
Get a manager involved.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe even do the sentiment analysis on like your internal people's communications to be like, well, I mean, Ashley is pretty surly with customers. Like, maybe she needs to go through some soft skills training. Not that
wouldn't surprise me, actually, but no, I mean, I think that's a good, because you always hear about like, oh, this, like when you call in, oh, this call is going to be recorded for whatever training purposes, things like that. So I mean, that is, I think, the easiest use case of anything is customer service.
Yeah, but I think overall, where I see the value in any of the AI stuff is when you have an overwhelming amount of data and it takes a lot of time to sift through it, right? Like if you think about that from the call center phone call recording perspective, if I want to know how is Ashley on the phone with customers, what am I going to do? Sit there and like listen to your phone calls for like 3 straight days? Like, I can't just listen to one phone call because maybe you're having a bad day, or maybe you stubbed your toe that morning or whatever. Like, I need to get data over time. So now I got to like listen to 4 of your phone calls from last week and 4 of your phone calls from next week. And I'm just like, I don't have time to listen to those, right? Going through all of the data would take too much time. And that's just one agent. Now, I say I've got 1,500 agents. Who's going to listen to all that? Nobody. So you make the computer do it. And the computer can come up with the trends and the whatever. And I can't think of a good reason at the moment to use like images for that. But I think, again,
service
in any
calls
situation,
is the only thing I
lot.
can think of.
Right. And maybe that's the best answer. Like, you're going out to service, I don't even know. Maybe you've got city employees that are like checking on every single fire hydrant and taking a picture of the fire hydrant. And so you've got thousands of fire hydrants that are getting all of their photos taken 3-4 times a year or whatever. You want to get a flag when it looks like one of them is too rusty or beat up or whatever and might need replacement. Maybe an easy way to do that is you just have an AI builder model go through and look at all of these things and be like, start flagging them to be like, well, this one on this corner looks like it could use some maintenance. I'm just wondering right now, if I had like a dashboard camera on my like city vehicles driving around, I wonder if it could identify potholes and like automatically flag like location of pothole that needs to be fixed because like
for them to do nothing about
it. Oh, of course they'll do nothing about it, but they'll know that it's there.
So people have to like can stop calling it in, but that's awesome.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, no, there's a pothole that I always pass that I always have to like swerve around. It's just yesterday I drove by it again. It's been like that since I moved here.
So I think like the idea that I see behind AI is if you got a bunch of data and you don't want to figure it out on your own, right? Whatever that data is.
So this was my question: is how is that different than customer insights? Because you said, if you have a lot of data and you don't know how to sort through it. Well, that's always kind of like the pitch for customer insights. So you have all this data that you need to sort through and compare and bring together.
So I have 2 parts to that answer. One part is customer insights does use a lot of AI in what it does. But the second part is customer insights is just trying to give you the picture. It's not necessarily telling you what the picture means, if
like
that makes
the action.
Sense.
Right. Gotcha.
Whereas
you have to take that picture that they give you and make some sort of judgment or analysis of it. Okay.
Right. Like customer insights is going to aggregate everything about your customer and be like, here's what you need to know about your buyer, Ashley, and what she's interested in and what she's buying and when she's had issues and all that stuff. And you're going to be like, cool. I feel like I really know Ashley really well right now. But so what? Like, you got to do something with that. And usually the value of customer insights is it's really hard to just get that picture in the first place. Mm-hmm. So it uses a bunch of AI in the background to like help aggregate all of that data. But all of the rest of this AI builder stuff, like, it's more about sifting through lots of data and then coming up with something useful out of it. Like, this has been usefully categorized, or this has been, usefully processed. So like the document processing example that I was helping to implement like a year ago was, like I don't remember, a shipping company or a logistics company or something. They get a lot of like trucks of stuff moving things around, and some of them are written out, and some of them are printed, and some of them are PDFs. And the process, as it was there's a guy sitting in accounting that gets all of these PDFs emailed to him, and he holds the PDF on one screen, and he's got his ERP system on the other screen, and he hand keys all of the data in. And that's like 98% of his job all day, every day. It's just keying data from one screen into another system.
I know I'd get really bored doing
that.
I was gonna say, I know I'd get really bored doing that, but like, think about how amazing that job would be of like no responsibility. Sounds amazing.
I feel like it sounds amazing until you like do it for 3 straight months, and then you just be like, I will do anything else. Like I'll do literally anything else.
Yeah, but it's true because it also takes out that what you said. So like you could streamline it. It takes out that human error too, right? Because if you could fat key something,
and that's not even to suggest that the AI is going to be spotless. Like it might make a mistake too if you've got like a handwritten invoice. Like maybe it's not that confident in it, but even in that document processing example, I think the out-of-the-box process that comes in Power Platform is like, there's a review stage. So it'll like show you the document, show you the data it extracted. You can be like, yes, these things are the same. Go. So like you might still want to have a check, but that's going to take so much less time, right? Like now your guy in accounting can hammer that out in like 20 minutes every morning instead of spending 6.5 hours a day just rekeying data.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's true though. I mean, people are always looking for ways to, well, I mean, and then because everyone's like, oh, we could cut a position. I was like, or think about what else that person could do, right? So it's not always necessarily about cutting roles, which is great. Everyone loves to save money, but you could expand or do the things that you've always wanted to do, but didn't have the budget or the money or the people. So you can reuse those talents because I'm sure the person keying all that in has some sort of accounting know-how. So
probably do something better. Else. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I always like to kind of gauge things on this level. Is this something I could learn how to do? Or is this a little bit more technical?
Yeah. So like, for example, again, the document processing model, the training process is you take your PDFs, you have to have at least 5, you upload your PDFs, and then it presents you with this screen. And it's like, okay, here's your PDF. Tell me where this data is. So you like draw a box, like here's the quantity, here is the per each price, here's the extended price, here's the shipping address. Like you just like draw boxes around it, and it says cool. And then it brings up the next example, and you go through the same process. And after you're through with those 5, and it's like, great, I think I got this. And anytime you give it a document that looks basically like that, it'll figure it out. So yes, you could totally do it.
Anything else you have to add on AI Builder? And I think we talked about doing Power FX, which I think ties in really closely. So there will be a podcast coming on that soon. Another thing for Ashley to learn.
I mean, that's another thing for me to learn too.
Yeah.
No, I think, like I said, the AI stuff is really cool. And I just kind of went through this with a customer of mine around the idea of like lead or opportunity scoring and, like the scoring models that's built into Dynamics Sales Enterprise. And, we were all like, oh, well, we got to come up with the rules and we got to figure out what we're going to do. We're going to whatever. And I was like, no, actually, all we have to do is give it like 1,000 closed as won and 2,000 closed as lost. And then it just figures out the scoring all by itself.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's the first thing I always think of is the lead scoring that's built into the Sales Insights. That, I mean, it uses the predictive model, which is one of the AI builder tools, right? You could use it for multiple things, but the hard part of that is you need the data to fill it. So if you have like a new implementation, you can't use it right away because you need to gain all that information. But but it is cool. I mean, that's the predictive.
It's either 3 or 6 months worth of data or something. So, I mean, in this current situation, we're like, well, we're going to come up with some hard rules for prioritization. And then, 6 months in, we'll turn on the out-of-the-box scoring, and it'll work through all this data and just magically figure itself out. It's going to be amazing. I hope.
And hopefully it's accurate.
Hopefully.
Awesome. Anything else, or I think we're good to close up today's topic?
No, I don't think so. I guess if anyone
this is only
has any
get
good ideas, I was going to say, if anybody has any good ideas for like AI model usage, especially the image categorization, I would love to hear real world examples.
Yeah, I think this is only going to get bigger too, right? Like I think Microsoft is only going to invest in this area more, so probably something we'll have to revisit in the future because it's just going to get bigger. So
probably.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks everyone for listening, and make sure you like and subscribe.
Thanks for listening. Thank you for listening to the Dynamics Hot Dish podcast. For additional content and previous episodes, check out our website at dynamicshotdish.com, follow us on Twitter at dynamicshotdish, and subscribe to our podcast for notifications. Thanks. See you next time.